The Secret Service team of Byron, Caitlin, Joe, and Kyle were questioned by the top gov guy in the 6th episode of Spy Show, during which they were told that their future activities would be ignored by the government. There was a lot of pressure on Joe and her crew, but they knew they couldn't back out of the gig now. At the same time, Cruz's gut feeling had been thrown off when she and Aaliyah had a close time together. She began to have second thoughts about her behavior and felt bad about lying to someone who had been so kind to her. So, let's see whether Cruz is able to overcome her feelings and complete the objective. What happened in Special Ops, Lioness Episode 7? When we first meet Joe and Caitlin Meade in the 7th episode, Wish the Fight Away, they have just arrived in Mallorca, Spain, to set up shop there in preparation for Aaliyah Amrohi's wedding. However, once top gov guy Edwin Mullins took charge of the Spy Show QRF Squad's gig, spy boss Byron Westfield began working on getting the green light for the crew. As the gig nears its final moments in Spain, Joe moves her crew out of the Hamptons. In the meanwhile, Joe has given Kyle the job of watching Cruz Manuelos, one of her assets. When Cruz and Aaliyah hear they're tying the knot, they immediately pack up and leave their Hamptons estate for the Big Apple. They're talking about wedding plans as they check into a hotel. When Cruz and Aaliyah go back to their hotel stay, they pop the champagne to toast the good news. But when Aaliyah kisses Cruz, things get awkward, and the room service walks in to break it up. Later, Cruz and Aaliyah decide to give in to the steamy vibes between them and get intimate. Joe's team, led by Bobby, finds her in Williamsburg and reunites with her. Joe gets a call from Kyle just after he hears Bobby update him on the situation. Kyle tells Joe that Cruz had an intimate moment with Aaliyah. He worries that Cruz's feelings for Aaliyah have changed and shares his suspicions with Cruz. Cruz, confused and aware that she's come too close to her target, sends Joe a text at the same moment. Joe reaches out to Cruz and makes plans to visit New York to fix things. The next morning, when Cruz is getting ready to check out of her hotel stay, Aaliyah stops her. Cruz says she needs time to think about her feelings, but argues that their relationship has no future. Because of this, Cruz decides to leave her hotel stay and find Kyle, who then leads her to a safe place in the hotel. Joe visits Cruz in his suite, where they have a chat about what's going on. Since Cruz's feelings for Aaliyah mess with her judgment and put the gig at risk, she wants to be evacuated and thinks about quitting. Joe, though, pressures Cruz and urges her to continue with the gig. Joe says it doesn't matter whether Cruz has real love for Aaliyah or not since the goal is a big deal. If they manage to stop Aaliyah's father, Joe says, it will end funding for most terror groups in the Middle East. Joe persuades Cruz to return to Aaliyah, but she's still torn about it since she must stop Aaliyah's father during the wedding. Later, when Kate gets home from the hospital, Joe is there to welcome her. Joe tells Kate that her next on-the-ground job will need her to spend 1 week away from her loved ones. While Kate would like her mother to stay, she understands the big deal of the gig to the country's safety and supports her decision. Joe cries in front of Neil because she has to leave her daughter in a risky spot so she can put her job first. Joe tells her that this is the last on-the-ground job before she moves on to an office gig. Joe leaves her family to go to Mallorca, Spain, with Caitlin and the rest of the Spy Show QRF team for the gig's final moments. Cruz's feelings for Aaliyah clash with her gotta do it in this episode. Joe's comments, however, seem to bring Cruz back to reality, and she acknowledges the seriousness of the issue. Joe may have thought of Cruz as expendable, but he still managed to talk with her person to person and get her back out into the field. In the final scene of the episode, Joe and the Spy Show team go to Spain to carry out their gig, stopping Aaliyah's father, millionaire Asmar Ali Amrohi, who is suspected of having terror ties. The success of the gig, though, depends on Cruz picking herself up and performing like a Marine. Cruz eventually finds his way back to Aaliyah, and the two have a heart-to-heart. With Cruz's guidance, Aaliyah sees that their relationship is doomed. Aaliyah realizes she can't change her situation and decides to go on without Cruz. Despite this, Aaliyah insists that her one and only friend, Cruz, be present at her wedding. Cruz accepts the wedding invitation, bringing her in nearness to the mark. Therefore, Cruz seems to have moved on from the quick fling and is focused on achieving her goal. Joe and Caitlin finally show Cruz images of war wrongs in the Middle East as they travel to Spain with her at the conclusion of the episode, giving her the last motivating push she needs. But the hyped-up movies seem to have upset Cruz even more, and she may let her feelings for Aaliyah override her gotta do it, putting the entire gig at risk.